Okay, welcome, everybody. This is the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a public hearing. Tonight is January 25th, 2010, and we have three continuances on that were carried over from prior meetings. We have one item of new business and one request for an extension. We'll be taking them in the order as laid out on the agenda that should be on the podium if anybody didn't get one. Anybody wishing to address the board tonight, if I could ask you in advance to please state your name and address for the record before you start speaking, so we don't have to interrupt you and interrupt your train of thought. It seems like we have a lot of people here tonight, and we'll do our best to hear from anybody who wishes to speak. The only thing I would ask that if somebody's already said something, that you don't come up and just repeat exactly what they said. Not that we're trying to eliminate anybody from speaking. We do want to hear from everybody that has anything to say, but if you could please limit your comments to anything new, if at all possible. The first matter we're going to take is ZB 2009-00043. This is a special permit and variance request for signs. The applicant is Barlow Signs, 732 Rogers Street. This is located in a regional retail district. The petitioner is requesting a special permit for the internal illumination of electronic changeability, for the alteration of an existing sign, and for a variance to exceed the maximum sign size allowed according to section 6.3.2 and 6.3.4 of the zoning code. This matter, I believe, was continued twice, if I'm correct, from prior meetings. We are in the process of, the city is in the process of redoing the sign ordinance to have it make more sense and to basically get up to speed with current technology, and that's been a work in progress. So that's the reason why a lot of these petitions have been continued that relate to signs. So, sir, could you please state your name?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tim Sullivan. I'm with Barlow Signs out of Hudson, New Hampshire.
Okay, and my recollection is last time we were talking about you were having some communications with the sign department, the Department of Planning and Development, and their sign director, and can you tell us if any progress has been made on that?
Basically, we've been reaching out to them on a regular basis, and the feedback we're getting is they're not really progressing at all with it. They don't have a rough documentation or anything for us to sort of see where they're heading at this stage, and it's been basically, well, almost 3 months since we were last in here. I believe we're in here the 1st of November. So at this stage of the game, we're just looking to move forward with basically their recommendations. In their denial, they made some recommendations about what they would like us to do, and with the majority of their recommendations, we don't have a problem with them. The one real stumbling block was the color versus a monochrome unit, if you will. A monochrome unit is just a black background in one color.
If you go what, sir?
A monochrome unit. And what that means is it's just one color on a black background. That's kind of a dying technology in the world of message centers. I believe there's only 2 or 3 manufacturers in the country still. And the main reason is because the full color units have become so affordable. It doesn't make sense for them to manufacture the monochrome type of unit. So what will happen is, another 3-4 years, you're going to start having issues getting parts for these types of units, and then you're going to start seeing more and more of them breaking down, and the units will be converted over to the full color units. So with respect to what the DPD had to say with our proposal, they were concerned with the size of the message center not taking up more than half the sign. We're under that. They were concerned with a rate of change, which I believe was 20 seconds. That is fine with my client. They were concerned with the brightness of the sign at night. And as I stated in the last meeting, these signs are designed to dim down typically 20% at night from 100% brightness during the day. And we usually find that 20% is plenty, and we'd usually dim them down 15 and even gone down as low as 10%. It depends on the ambient light, what's going on in that area. That's a very well-lit street, so it would tend to be lit a little bit more, but I wouldn't say it's going to be any more than probably 25% of the normal brightness. And that's something you kind of got to feel out when you see the sign in its environment. So basically, with their only two concerns, one was the total area of the sign not to exceed 20 square feet, and we're at 24 square feet, and that's kind of a technology reason, in that the panels that these LEDs are made on are actually 9 inches by 9 inches. To get at 20 square feet, we'd have to knock off a full 9-inch panel, and you really are going to jeopardize the size of the board if I have to cut off that full 9 inches on the bottom. When in reality, to go from 24 down to 20 square feet, I really only need to knock off 3 or 4 inches on the bottom. Just with the technology, I can't do that. So that was our concern. If you start knocking off that full 9 inches, then you get a real linear board, and it's tough to show anything on there. So that was our concerns with respect to what the DPD had to say. We tried to hit, basically everything that they were requesting, and I think we've done a pretty good job with it.
What is the argument for the hardship? I mean, you're requesting a variance,
If I may approach, I've got some aerial shots of the property, which might
Sure.
help.
Thank you. Just for the record, the applicant has handed to the board, the first picture is an overview picture of Rogers Street, showing the proposed site with the baseball field in the background. And then the next page appears to be just a street-level photo heading outbound from Hannaford's, and then another one of the sign heading in the same direction. On the location, the sign that's, I think the one that we can see is Jeep in the background and Satin more prominently. And anybody who's here tonight that wants to see a picture, I'm sure you can pass that around if anybody's interested. And then there's some other pictures of the various car dealerships that are either adjacent to or next to that property. So I guess my question, or the question through DPD, and I guess mine too, is what would be your legal basis for the hardship?
Well, with respect to hardship, the property itself, if you're approaching from the east, from 495 towards the property, the whole property is blocked by the baseball field, a row of trees, and there's a 8-foot chain link fence right out close to the road. If you look on page 2, that's the photo on the left. You can see the chain link fence, the trees, and that's as you're approaching from 495. It's really not visible at all. The topography of the land, it drops off. So again, there's really no visibility of this property. And again, if you're looking at that photo, you can see the Saturn sign fine, and it's pretty tough to pick up the Jeep sign in front of it. And that's our intention, is to get a sign of a size that's appropriate for a motorist to have a proper distance to make a turn onto the property and not cause problems with traffic. If you look at it from the west, which is the right-hand photo on that second page, again, it's small. You're going up an incline, and it's blocked by some of the other buildings that are in as you're approaching it. On on page 3, what I did was I mocked up what the actual board size will look like on the photos in its environment. And again, compared to the other signs in the area, I don't think it's overbearing. I don't think it's large. And on the final page, it's what the other signs adjacent to the property have. And one thing that the DPD was concerned with is how the property was maintained. And my client has said that if this goes through and we proceed with this type of advertising, there wouldn't be reasons to hang banners from the flagpole, so that will clean up the property. I think they maintain the property fairly well. It's an attractive-looking building. They have landscaping, they mulch, they keep it looking good from the street, and it's important to keep that.
What would be the need to keep the sign illuminated at all beyond any operating hours, business of operation? Hours of operation?
There probably isn't. I mean, 10 o'clock would be fine turning it off. And coming on at 6 o'clock in the morning once people start coming in for the service departments.
Does the applicant have any plans to do any other advertising except for their direct business on those signs? In other words, are we going to see something like Goodyear tires, a sale somewhere else at Sears or wherever?
Oh, no, it's basically, it'll be on-premise advertising. However, they have offered it to the town, if the town would like to put a public service message up there. That's a function that the board can be used for, and as I said earlier, they're also going to be tied into the Amber Alert network within the state for those public service announcements.
Well, I think when I told you last time that my concern, and I'm just one member, one vote, but my concern was that we have down the street from there on the left, one of the banks has a sign that changes, and it can get distracting. I don't even know if it does what it's supposed to do, because it changes and it flashes and it turns, and it's kind of distracting and it's hard to read. I don't know exactly what you propose for this sign. Is there a sign similar to this that this board can go look at to see what this will do? Because I don't want to vote yes or no for something until I really have an idea what I'm voting on.
Their intentions for this board is to fade on, fade off, and have the message on the board for 20 seconds. No blinking, no scrolling, no flashing, as the other boards on that stretch of road are doing now. We found from these types of units that it doesn't make sense to do it. As you said, it's tough to read them. It's tough to actually pick up the message that you're trying to get across. It's better just to leave the message on there for 20 seconds and then fade it off and fade on with another one. There'll be no movement. Again, those were all requests from the DPD, and that's the way we intend to use it. And if it was a favorable approval tonight and that was part of the contingency for the board, then it would be no problem to run it like that.
Okay, anything else?
No, I'm set.
Okay, any questions from any members of the board before I open up to the public?
One question to the petitioner. The only question you didn't answer was the question which the chairman posed to you. Are there any signs in the immediate area or anywhere that we could possibly see to help make a decision? That was the only comment I would make.
Not that I know of. I mean, I think unfortunately in town it's kind of gotten to the point where there's no regulation to these types of units, which is why the DPD feels the need to regulate them. I can think of up in Nashua, for example, they've written their sign code to be like this: no animation, no graphics, no flashing, no blinking, none of that. And their newer message centers in town strictly adhere to a fade on, fade off. I believe they're at 15 seconds, but in the town of Lowell, I'm not sure of it.
It doesn't necessarily have to be Lowell. If you can just give us an idea of where.
Right. Well, I know, like I said, I know in Nashua on the Daniel Webster Highway, there's some boards that are adhering to the new sign ordinance up in Nashua. I know them.
Similar in size?
They're actually larger. Nashua has I believe Nashua has 100 square foot cap, and their boards are 50% of that, so you're talking some 50 square foot boards, so about twice the size of these.
But basically a similar board, something,
Correct, a full colored unit. I know Peters Chevrolet in Nashua is running, or Peters Honda, excuse me, is running the boards exactly how we like to have them run. They're fading them off, the message stays, they're not bright, it's in control, and it looks very attractive, and they've had a lot of success with their board.
okay, anybody else, any other comments,
Yes, Mr.
questions?
Chairman, I have a question for the petitioner. Now, unfortunately, you're here at a transitional period with, the planning and development, revamping the signage codes. It's a very difficult thing, with technology, the way it's exploding. Could your client afford to wait for that reason while DPD, I know we're looking at 6 months or so, but could your client afford to wait for that reason and others, as Mr. Knox and the chairman has stated, to get the board examples?
I believe at this stage with us that we've already waited for 3 months to get to this point. And I think if the board regulates it, it really doesn't matter how the DPD is going to come down, because we're already kind of working within their guidelines. And that's our concern. With this economy and businesses coming and going like crazy, if this sign means 4 more sales a month, that's a big deal. And that's what we need to do. We need to allow this business to get those additional sales based off of a point of purchase type of sign like this.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, anybody
Thank you,
else?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm not prepared to vote on this tonight, just like you indicated that. I'd like to see a similar sign of this type. You indicated that Nashua, the Jeep places have it. Could you provide us the address so that we can go see it and then maybe move this off to the next meeting so that we have a better understanding of what the sign look like before we vote on it? At this time, I'm not prepared to vote on it. But if you can provide us the address where we can go see it, that would be great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Bill?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, just a couple of things. I think a lot of the conditions you were referring to was from the letter we got on October 13th from DPD. They originally started this, where they listed out the conditions that you were not meeting. Now, as you were talking, you had gone through a few of these, and I noticed in the letter it also talks about size and color. Now, you did talk about the size and color, correct?
Correct.
The size is a little bit off. Now, the color, is the color tied around the technology you were talking about?
Correct. That's the monochrome type unit.
Okay.
A yellow, in fact, the 2 banks on Rogers Street
Right.
employ monochrome units.
Now, the other thing they mentioned was there's no information about brightness of the sign and movement of messages. Did you
Correct.
cover?
That's what I addressed. I addressed how our intention is to fade on, fade off, so there'll be no scrolling, blinking, that type of thing. And the overall brightness of the sign will be 25% at night. And that's kind of an educated guess, judging by the ambient light that's in that area. If it was in the middle of a field that's pitch black, it would obviously be down to like 5 or even 10%. It would be fairly dull.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, could I ask the representative from DPD come to the podium?
Yes, is Rachel here? Oh, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm Rachel Kisker, design planner for DPD.
And the reason why I asked to have you come up, since this was drafted like 3 months ago, and obviously this business has waited 3 months,
Yes.
and we've talked about before about the signage. Does the city have any idea when the new signage ordinance is going to be put in?
Well, as you know, we have been working at it, and we understand that this applicant falls in that middle period when we're not quite ready, and we apologize for that, because I don't want to hold up any particular applicant. We have been moving forward, but as even tonight illustrates, the more we talk about things like digital electronic signs, it raises more questions than it presents answers. But we are working quite hard as a group to move this ahead now that, you know, we're in a new year and we're, you know, hitting the ground running. I can't give a solid, you know, time estimate. I know that we've talked about in the next, you know, couple of months having a draft to go over with you folks and other people. But I wouldn't want to give myself a deadline right now tonight because, you know, I'd have to converse further with the folks back at DPD. But it is our top priority, and we understand that this puts this particular issue in an awkward position, as Mr. Belanger mentioned. That is why in the October letter, which I reiterated in today's letter, we tried to, you know, anticipate some of the things that we were forming. In addition to the things that were listed on October 13th or 14th that I reiterated in today's letter, another thing that we've been discussing that I mentioned at the end of the memo are issues about bringing the rest of the site up to code. So in other words, if the landscaping, for example, for a parking lot, if the percentages are not currently met, you know, that would be something what we would want in sort of, you know, as part of granting a digital electronic sign. That is something that I think, you know, all of this technology and brightness and colors is very hard to sift through, but that's one example that I could say, you know, with more confidence that would be something that we would want to, you know, include in the new code. So those are the type of issues we've been kicking around, which is why I tried once again to write my memo in such a way that we were introducing some ideas for you to consider as we move forward.
Well, the reason why I bring up the time frame, you know, obviously this business is trying to put something in, and I'm sure you're sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the gentleman's point about the technology, I'm trying to remember exactly what you were talking about, something going out, basically being obsolete, and is that being considered? Is your
Absolutely.
department looking at something like that too?
Absolutely. In fact, a colleague in DPD just today did a chart talking about some of the issues that have been brought up tonight: color, brightness, density, words that I don't even quite know the full definition of yet. Things like I can't even remember, knit and, you know, foot candles, and some of the things that we've talked about at these meetings. So we are diving right into it and trying to get a handle on how the code will be shaped. And I'm sure we'll be, you know, going to Barlow Signs and others for input as we learn more about these issues that were brought up tonight. I understand what Barlow Signs is saying, that perhaps some things that we've listed are too restrictive because, again, we're going off, you know, what we know right now or what we knew in October. So calling out things to be single color or dual color, perhaps that isn't, you know, if we're going to move ahead with electronic signs, perhaps, you know, we need more education, which is why we're, you know, we're hesitant to, you know, come down tonight with a firm idea. We're just trying to give you ideas that you folks can work with to make a decision. But it's tough, and I apologize. I really do apologize. You know, we're not trying to hold anybody up, and we're certainly working on it. And I know that Erin Clausen in our office has talked to Jen from Barlow Signs, and she has been very, you know, diligent, but we just don't have all the answers right now.
But is there a way we could approve some of what they
approve with
have,
conditions?
and based on you coming to, or the department coming to some type
Right.
of conclusion, that things could be, I don't know if it can work that way, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to be fair
Yeah,
to the
no, I
petitioner,
understand
because
what
I
you're
think they're
saying.
trying to work as hard as they can with it, and I know there's like maybe 6 or 7 different conditions
Yeah.
here. You know, they seem to, or they are willing to bend on some of them. I don't know if they're happy with bending, but is there any way that we could approve it with certain things that could be, once the department has something approved,
Sure.
that could be added later?
Well, I think tonight, what was brought up by 2 or more board members was the idea of looking at another similar sign, I think would help. Perhaps that would be a way to kind of move ahead if we could, you know, without continuing it indefinitely, perhaps, you know, one site visit either as a group or separately, and then maybe, you know, chat about that. The other thing would be the removal of any, you know, out of code or extraneous signs that might be on the site to improve the site, and which isn't to say that they don't, you know, have a very well-presented site. They do, but anything that might just be, you know, got lost in the shuffle that might not meet code. And the last thing would be perhaps the addition of landscaping. Again, one condition that we would like to move forward with as we develop this new code is, making sure that we have the landscape buffers. And that will do two things. One, it's just going to make for a better neighborhood for everybody, and also it will kind of soften, as we add some electronics to the landscape, which isn't to say we want to hide it, but, maybe some buffering landscape trees closer to the building, along the street, in different areas will just kind of balance that off a little better. So those are our goals there, to uphold the code, but also to improve the neighborhood as we add more technology to it with some more nature.
Are you anticipating any signs that are currently on that street that need to be, the owners would have to be spoken to after this new code is put in?
I can't remember what we talked about. I don't think so. I mean, as I understand it, this digital sign would be in addition to the signs that they already have, so I think it pushes them, no, it's not pushing them over. I'm not sure, someone was shaking their head. It is my understanding that this sign pushes them over the total square footage allowed for their lot, so I don't know if there's a way to kind of trade, maybe one for another. But I don't know I can't think of off the top of my head a particular sign that I have in mind that doesn't meet code that I want them to remove. It's kind of more of a general recommendation.
Well, that, Mr. Chairman, that's just one thing I would throw out. I mean, is there a way that, if the petitioner would meet some of the conditions that we've talked about, could we do something like that? And then once the department has their final regulations in place, petitioner could have another 30 days, 60 days, whatever, to implement those things. I don't know if we can do something like that, but.
Well, I think what we've done in the past with similar situations, to be fair to the applicant, is approve it with if it's approved, with conditions, and have a 90-day or sometime even a 6-month review period pending, I guess, the final sign ordinance revisions, and then I guess would be asking the applicant to take a risk that they would agree to comply with recommendations made by DPD.
Right.
So they'd be agreeing to something they don't know what it's going to be. It'd be a little bit of risk for the applicant. Let me ask you, Rachel, does the fact that they're willing to shut that down when they're not open, say 10 at night to 6, change, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but does that change your perspective as to, whether you're leaning more towards something like this rather than against it?
I think that's a great way to regulate it. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wish I had put it in the memo. I think that's a step in the right direction as far as we're concerned.
So I think on that street, I mean,
Yeah.
I go down it quite often, and there's nothing you're going to do about the business of the street. It's supposed to be busy because that's what that area is for. But a lot of those signs are on all night.
Right.
And it's a lot of the restaurants and everything, and I think that if you have somebody who's willing to accept a condition where they are willing to shut that down
Yeah.
for those, 8 hours or so, I think to the residents around there, it makes a big difference, because it makes it, a quieter place after hours where it's usually not, so.
Right.
A lot of those games, the kids get out, and that's after 10 o'clock, so I wouldn't be as concerned with the safety issues. We do have some pictures here as to what the proposed, and I'm sure you saw these.
I've seen them, yes.
So do you see that as I guess if I can ask you, do you see that as a huge difference to what they have now, or adding to the street? Is it a
Right.
huge distraction, or is
Well-
it something that, is reasonable from your perspective?
I can understand why they want it. I guess our position is, signs are to say, what businesses are where, kind of thing, and they're not necessarily, although I know this is probably in conflict with what the sign industry would say, it's not necessarily to be the brightest or grab the most attention on the street. Although I don't think it's totally unreasonable, especially for that street, that area with the other car dealerships there. So this one concerns me less than if it were in a different neighborhood. And I really do appreciate them, working with us and putting the restrictions on it being lit at night. And, we welcome those changes and we appreciate them, because we know that they're coming from, a different standpoint, and we certainly don't want to, to constrain that. So, so I think what they're asking for is reasonable. I just think we are, just once again, not to harp on it because it's not their problem, is, we're just in a tough position where as we're moving forward, we don't want this to be the first of, perhaps many, and then it becomes much more cluttered, as was mentioned about the other sign down the street. I think that's what we're trying to avoid is, having strict guidelines in place so we know what we're getting in each instance, and that we can sort of predict the cumulative, effect of those additions. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like one bright one wouldn't be the end of the world, but then, as we move forward, how does that affect the neighborhood?
Right, but with the Buick, it's the sign that says Buick Pontiac GMC, you can't be much more prominent than that
Yeah,
sign.
yeah, no, I see
It's
what you're
high,
saying.
it's bright,
Yep.
and I don't know what they could possibly add to it. I mean, if they came before us for a board like this, that size,
Right.
I think that's not something that you're looking to,
Right.
to
I mean-
support. But, and the Chevrolet sign,
Right.
and even it's a different sign, but the Satin sign's very, prominent as well. And this sign's kind of tucked back there, and I can
Yeah.
see their point.
Okay.
I'm just not sure what
Yeah.
that sign's gonna look like. And if you have some experience with it and can save us a trip saying, listen, that sign that that they're proposing is not going to be as distracting as the signs of the other businesses there, then I may be okay with it. It's just that,
Right.
I don't want to make it any more distracting
Right.
than it is compared to the other signs.
Well, I'm with you. I've looked at the photographs and I've done the research and, I'm not 100% sure on what it would look like in real life. I think that's why we wrote those restrictions in our first letter that we carried over to the next letter to try to, rein it in. So, I guess I can't answer that for you right this second on
Okay.
what, I can't say with confidence, if I think it'll be distraction or not, over and beyond what we already have there, which is, a car dealership, road that does a lot of business and a lot of commerce. The only other thing I'd like to add is with regard to the landscaping and meeting the existing zoning code. I believe that's, in your zoning code right now, and it wouldn't be, if the new sign code says that you have to do those landscape improvements in order to get an electronic sign of this nature, they could refer to, to what we have written already. In other words, the landscape improvements aren't going to change, I don't think necessarily. If we wanted to just, maybe they will, but I'm saying just as a base, if they wanted to look at what that would entail, that way they would have a sense of what they were getting themselves into if you would like to move forward with approval with conditions.
Well, I
If that
think
makes any
my
sense.
concern would be, and maybe this is what Jack was kind of alluding to, but if the sign were up there for, say, a period of 6 months, and then we realized that it's not what, we thought, or that it's more distracting, or that changing, whatever they propose is really not what we had anticipated, I think we're looking for a mechanism where we can regulate that
Okay.
at a later date. And I guess that has nothing to do with you. That's internally how this board would handle it. And I think, I'm just thinking about it now, and the applicant may be able to give me more information, but I think if they accepted some sort of blanket condition that we can put on, they would be taking a risk. But we would have a review period to review the status of the messaging and whether or not it should be changed.
Right.
They're going to be investing a lot of money to put it up, so they put it up, and then we don't like what we see, it's a risk the applicant takes.
Right.
Or possibly wait and let us take a look at another sign similar to it and revisit it, of course, after we have the input from anybody who wants to speak.
Well, I think someone mentioned 6 months or so, and I know we've already spent 3 months on it, maybe if we could, I don't know, get ourselves a little more time. I don't know, I don't want to make those, thoughts
Right.
even, because that's not my, that's
No, but it is
not
unfortunate.
my job, but maybe, and I don't want to drag this out forever, and as I said, we're working very hard on the sign code, but maybe, just a little more time, just to kind of see one in real life. The other, I guess that would be our,
And, to be fair to the applicants, they have been here numerous times, and
Absolutely.
they've
And
done
we
everything we've
appreciate
asked
that.
them to
Yep.
do, and it's
Yep.
really not, it's basically
Yeah,
our
no, I
fault, not
agree.
theirs,
I
so.
agree. So I agree with what you're saying. Enough, some sort of conditions that can make it that, we have some options, but that doesn't, hold them up any further or make it unreasonable for them. I would agree with that.
All right, well, thanks for your input.
Thank you.
All right, do you have something to say, Mr. Hill?
Sure.
Look like you do.
One thing that we're willing to do, seeing as the town's trying to sort this out, is it would be a nice prototype unit in town, that the town could go in and see what brightness levels work, what brightness levels don't work, rate of changes, to help develop the code. This type of sign, although there are others in town, there's one at the Saints Memorial Hospital, and then the board approved the full-color LED billboard, if you will, at the last meeting. It's basically that same technology, but it's just scaled down as opposed to the billboard. But, it's tough to say, as we heard about, foot candles and knits and all that kind of technology with this type of sign. Well, why not have one in town that you can go and experiment with? Maybe they'll find out that, a 20-second rate of change is too long. Maybe they'll want to tone it down to 15, or maybe they'll say, 1 minute is where we should be at. But you're not really going to know until you have a board in town that you can experiment with.
So what happens if our answer, when your prototype goes up and we say, yeah, 20 minutes is too long? I mean, too short of a time, then were you willing to work with us to change that? Because you're a prototype, but is your prototype of something we don't want?
I guess my question is once they come up with the new sign ordinances, are existing boards in town going to have to adhere to the code?
Retroactively?
Yeah, well, like, for example, are the banks going to have to tone theirs down to 20-second changes?
I don't, legally, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know if they can do that.
I don't think so. I think we can suggest it. I mean, I think the city can suggest it, but I don't think
Right.
there's any enforcement to
Right.
it.
Right.
So I guess to my question, because I like that idea, I didn't think of that, but if we do have an actual sign to go by that's limited in size, and we would have something to look at, but I would hate to say, listen, there's the sign on Rogers Street. That's what we don't want, so what do you propose? I mean, that doesn't get anybody anywhere.
Yeah, I understand.
So how would we
understand.
be, and you don't have to give me an answer now, maybe it's something to think about, but it's a very good idea. Maybe it's one of these situations where you agree in advance that you'll work with, now that you have that sign, you have that technology up, you'll work with the DPD to come up with, a dimness factor, or whatever you're gonna do. I like the idea that you're willing to shut it off for non-business hours, because it doesn't make sense to keep it on there. And I think that's, and the other businesses, most of them are not doing that, so I think that's a good idea. Whatever your wish is, I mean, we're gonna hear from the public, anybody that wishes to comment on it, but, or any other member. Go ahead, Jeff.
It's a fine balance, and the irony here is that the term hardship was mentioned, and the chairman asked if the petitioner could prove a hardship. Unfortunately, to circumstances certainly way beyond Rachel, she just came into the midst of all this. The hardship that's being placed is we're placing on the petitioner, because we're asking him to continue operating the way he's operating. And as the petitioner stated, the signage is what they need to enhance the business. If my knowledge is correct, this particular owner of this dealership just came in, I think probably less than 2 years ago, or approximately 2 years ago, and they took over a defunct business. So what this gentleman has done is to invest in the city, contribute to the tax base, and I would like to see us reach a decision. Certainly petitioner is reaching out to us, and if Rachel and her department are willing to accept the conditions and work with the signer, I certainly would be prepared to recommend approval. I think some of the things that we've learned from a very recent petition, and this petitioner has brought it again, as far as the controlling of the light, if my memory serves me correct from the previous petition, the ambient light is inherently controlled by the technology as the day darkens. I believe that's correct.
Correct.
I do have a question, though, when the board is off, in reference to the Amber Alert and any courtesies that would be extended, particularly under the umbrella of emergencies. The technology that we were made aware of was that there would be approximately a 15-minute interval in order for the board to be up and running. Is that the same technology that's offered by your board?
Yes.
So in other words, what I'm saying is 2 o'clock in the morning,
If there was an Amber Alert.
an emergency broadcast, and what we were informed of by the previous petitioners, that would take approximately 15 minutes for the technology. Is that correct?
Correct. As long as the computer's left on in the office, which it will be, the board itself shuts down. The brains, if you will, doesn't shut down. So the Amber Alert comes into that computer, signals the board to turn on, and I guess it's probably a 15-minute time span for that to happen.
The difficulty here is, I don't think there's anyone who loves the city that isn't excited about the master plan. And we continually reference that term, and each department that comes before us does so. And I'm as excited as the next citizen or next neighbor about the master plan and developing everything that we want to see as the renaissance of the city continues. But each of us here on all of our boards have to recognize the difficulty it comes in also trying to help businesses who contribute to the tax base. And that's what concerns me, in finding that balance between the two. I hope this can be worked out, and I think if all of the conditions that I believe this board would place would be accepted, and planning and development would go along with that, I would be prepared to support the petition tonight.
Okay. Any other comments before I open up to the public? Any other comments before I open up to the public? Okay, anybody wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody wishing to speak in favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? In opposition, and hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. So that leaves us kind of in limbo as to how we proceed. We can take a vote tonight. Sir, this is to the applicant. We can take the vote tonight based on some of the discussions we've had about the conditions we'd put on it, and you would accept that, or we can offer you a continuance, and it's your choice. I mean, you've heard the discussions, you can...
We'll take the vote this evening.
Okay, so I think some of the conditions we discussed, if from my vote, if I were willing to support this, I would want to see that and I don't know if you want to write these down so we have them, so there's a record of it, that the board is turned off from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. each day. And these are just my suggested conditions, and that the applicant bring up to code all landscaping requirements on the property, including any landscaping requirements in the proposed new sign ordinance. And that the applicant agree to remove any extraneous signs or banners on the property. And I think what we're getting at there, and it's not so much your business as the others, but there are a lot of, I'd rather see more boards than those signs and flags and everything else that make it not look good. But I think that's the point with this technology, that you're trying to focus it in one area rather than all over the place. That the property also bring up to code anything regarding the interior lot, the parking lot, and the street edge. And that the applicant offer the city free notification. I don't know, how do we put that for the billboard?
Public service announcement?
Public service announcements. That the sign have no movement of the message, and to change no less than every 20 seconds. And that the petition is to be reviewed in 6 months from the time the sign is turned on for the first time, reviewed by this board in 6 months for compliance, and input, just compliance and input. That would be my suggested conditions. And did you address the issue about having the DPD suggested having less than 50% of their face used as electronic message center?
Yes, the sign is below 50% presently.
Have less than 50%?
Correct, it is less than 50%.
Okay. And the smaller than 20 square feet?
20 square feet, we're at 24 square feet. So that's the one stumbling block, if you will.
Okay, well, I think that the way your signs pitch it, I don't have a problem with that. Those are my, anybody else want to offer any other conditions?
On the movement, there's no animation, correct?
Yeah, no animation,
Correct.
no change, no,
Fade on, fade off messages. No,
they're limited to fade on, fade off message. That's a good way to put it.
Mr. Chairman, as the applicant, it suggested fade on, fade off, no blinking, no scrolling, no flashing, no animation. I think that covers the movement.
Okay, and that's acceptable? No fade on, fade off, no blinking?
Yep.
No changing, okay. Okay, and if there's no other proposed conditions, I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve with the following conditions. That the message board be turned off from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. daily. Applicant bring up to code all landscaping requirements, and all requirements will be set forth by planning and development. Remove all extraneous signage and banners. Bring up to code parking lot, building, and street edge. Offer city public service announcements. Now, Mr. Chairman, on that one, should we have a number, dollar figure there, a number figure? How would you like to specify that?
No, because it's not really advertising like the billboard. I think we just, if we can say they can work with Department of Planning and Development to offer the city free of charge public service announcements.
Offer city public service announcements to be determined by planning and development. Would that be suffice?
Yep.
Okay. There will be no movement of messages or animation or blinking. Limited to fade on and fade off messages. Messages change every 20 seconds. And 6-month peer review for compliance and input from the board.
6 months board review, not peer review.
Board review.
And then landscaping?
Said that.
I think we covered that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I heard parking lot, building, and street edge.
Number 2 is applicant bring up to code all landscaping requirements that will be set
Okay.
forth by planning and development. That was
Okay,
the second one.
good.
Madam Secretary, is all those clear?
Time of activation.
Time of activation, yes.
Seconded.
And roll call, Kim, please?
Approved with conditions.
Approved with conditions.
Approve with conditions?
Approved with conditions.
Approve with condition.
So you've been unanimously approved with the conditions discussed. I just need to come up and sign and date these photos you gave me, as well as the proposed plan. You may have a copy of that. I guess the schema, yeah. And if you could hand that after you sign and date it. Yeah. Hand it to Kim, please. And just be careful of the wires. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Okay, the next matter is ZB 2009-000045. This is a special permit, telecommunications. The applicant is Clear Wireless LLC. The property is located at 403 Andover Street, and this petition is for the installation of telecommunication panel antennas 3, dish antennas 2, and related equipment inside stealth steeple housing and related equipment on side of church for Clear Wireless according to section 7.6 of the zone ordinance. Welcome again, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In the interest of working with the board, I know it's still the desire of the board to hire an outside consultant to do a peer review of the application and the materials that have been submitted. We're here to request a continuance and in the hopes of, I guess, working with the board and the neighbors to come to a solution that works for all parties.
Okay, and just as an update for that, for anybody who's interested, there's just been some downtime trying to acquire a person for peer review. That's in the process, hopefully now, so we should have that by the next meeting, which I think is the end of next month. So we will get input from that. My sense is that there's some folks here that want to address the board on this issue, and rather than have them come back in case they can't the next meeting, but they are here tonight, so we are going to listen to anybody who wants to say anything about this petition. That will become part of the public record for whatever eventual vote is taken on this, sir. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Okay, in hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition to this petition? Ma'am in the back? If you could just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Karen Green, 91 Elliott Drive in Lowell, and I stand in opposition of this. I received a notice that this was going to be before the board, and I frankly was horrified. I don't personally believe that there's a place on Andover Street for a 55-foot tower, as I was notified that that's what it was going to be. I've lived in Belvedere all my life. I've had 2 homes here. And I just don't believe that's a place for a cell tower. I would never buy a home adjacent near a tower, power lines for health issues, or from, I would worry about my property. My street is a continuance of Star Ave. When I have guests coming from outside Lowell, I send them Andover Street, take a left on Pentucket, and follow to Elliott Drive. So what I do now is, instead of saying take a left at the church, I tell them take a left at the 55-foot cell tower. I don't think so. But my concern is for my health and that of my family, and my property value, as well as my neighbors in Belvedere. We've had our property assessed. I have 2 acres of land and a beautiful home that I, care deeply about. And I know when they had that assessed, they take a lot into consideration. And we struggle in Lowell as landowners, what they value in Lowell. And certainly a cell tower doesn't belong in our backyard. And, I stand opposed to this, and I hope you take my concerns into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Pat Stady. I live at 332 Andover Street in Lowell. I've lived there for over 30 years. And I really object to the tower due to the fact when I go out my door and look to the left, that's all I'm going to be able to see. And I do believe on the last where you approved the sign for the car lot, that's a commercial area. Andover Street is not. There's a lot of history on Andover Street. And I think it would be really taking away from all the value that's on Andover Street.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition, ma'am? Yeah, and folks, are you signing in, by the way? Anybody who's spoken, you have to sign in as well and put your name and address. So if you haven't done it now, just make sure you do it before you leave.
Okay.
Prefer you do it right before you speak, but,
There's nothing,
Kim, I don't think there's anything up there. I know there was when I came in, so I don't know. Oh, no pen, okay.
My name is Alice Hassey. I live on 105 Star Avenue in Lowell. I've lived there for about 10 years. And why I moved to Belvedere was because of the history in the beautiful area that it's been maintained and throughout the years. And to see a cell tower go up in the area, which is purely residential, and to face everybody's property, basically reduce property value around the area, would just be a sin, because people really strive to maintain their property in their area. I think across the street from that church, one couple put in close to $1 million in enhancing their property in that area, and they live almost across the street from the location where you're anticipating putting the cell tower in. I can only anticipate their horror at this prospect. I'm totally opposed of the possibility of putting a cell tower in on Andover Street.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? Attorney
Mr.
Weicker.
Chairman, Raymond Weicker from Quahall, Harvey and Walsh, on behalf of my clients, the Halls, who are residents and abutters on Pentucket. I'm just asking to reserve the right and keep the option to speak open until after such time as an expert has done a peer review, so that there could be some input from the community based on the review that's done. There may be questions that are raised. There may be questions with respect to alternative sites that the expert addresses, and I think that the members of the community should have the opportunity to at least comment or question.
I agree. I will reopen that for when we do have the peer review. We'll have that report. We'll try to make it public as soon as we can. I'm sure the applicant's going to have something to say about it. You folks may have something to say about it, and we're willing to hear everybody out on the issue, anybody that wants to speak on it. So when I say it's closed for tonight. It will be reopened at another hearing. But I did see, and the board did notice, that there were a lot of folks that came here tonight that we can only, because of the agenda, anticipate that it was mostly for this petition. So a lot of people aren't going to be able to come back the next meeting or may not want to. So we are willing to accommodate them and hear what they have to say for the record for tonight. And if they want to come in after they hear anything with peer review, they're more than welcome to speak again. Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Jack O'Connor, 124 Manza Street. Thank you for hearing us tonight so that we don't have to come back, so it's part of the record. I moved to Lowell 25 years ago, I should say back to Lowell, in one of the, I think one of the nicest historical houses in the city. And I'm afraid that if we open too much commercialism to Andover Street in the residential area, I mean, anybody could put a cell tower on their house. And I think that it would certainly devalue the property, as many people have already commented, that people drive down Andover Street, I look at it, they say it's a beautiful city to enter, and we need to keep as much commercial, not industry, but commercial real estate off of Andover Street. We need to preserve it. The same as sitting here in this beautiful room, doing damage to it doesn't do anything for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? And again, there'll be this meeting will be continued if the board votes to do so to the next meeting, which is, Kim? Yeah, so.
I think it's the 22nd. I don't think there's any, February 22nd.
Just for the record, can I see a show of hands for anybody here that came here to oppose this? And just for the record, the board counts about 35 people in opposition. And the other thing I would like to suggest, at least to the board, is, there are some historical issues that were brought up tonight and at past meetings, so I would like, in my opinion, I'd like to have this referred to the Historic commission for their input as to what impact or non-impact this may have on the neighborhood. It seems to me that it's going to be a significant impact on the neighborhood, and we should have, since that Andover Street is our main thoroughfare, or one of our main thoroughfares, I think that it's only fair to have some input from the historic board as to what they think. So we would have to do that by motion, so does anybody want to make that motion? For a referral to the historic board for input for our next meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I certainly would love to do something like that. But to add to the situation here now, Clear Wireless has been in front of it. They're a new provider in the city of Lowell. Okay, this board has more than shown its willingness to work with Clear Wireless. We've approved, I want to say, 4 to 5 locations already. Cross Point, Saints Memorial, on, places where they belong, and existing cell towers on West Meadow Road. But now we're encroaching on residential neighborhoods. Okay, and as you can see, these people take a lot of pride in their homes. So, I need to see clear evidence that Clear Wireless have explored all avenues here. Because this is definitely, we're talking something's going to be 40, 50 feet in the air. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb. And there's a lot of historic homes on that street. So I just assume that in the interim, as you said, Mr. Chairman, I would like to hear from the historic board on the impact to the neighborhood with all the historic homes and renovations going on as we speak. So with that being said, I'll make a motion. So do we do this in 2 motions, Mr. Chairman?
We need, it's 2 separate motions. The first motion, I guess, let's take care of that, because the applicant is requesting, if I'm right, you're requesting a continuance till the next meeting, which we found out was February 22nd. So anybody, if it's continued to February 22nd, anybody wishing to speak in favor or opposition to this petition can come here that night. There's not going to be any public notice other than what you're hearing right now, so you won't see anything in the paper. So if you are wishing to address the board in any way, you should show up that night, if that's what the board continues it to. So I need a motion for that first.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue to February 22nd for the reasons for a peer review input.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call, Kim, please.
Continue.
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 And I also make a second motion to refer this matter to the historic board for input on impact on neighborhood.
Seconded.
And roll call, Kim, please.
Continue.
Continue and refer to the historic board.
Continue.
Refer the matter to historical board for review.
Continue.
Okay, and Kim, so that's been continued as well. Kim, can you just make sure that the historic board gets this tomorrow? Gets this referral tomorrow? And also, if you can discuss this with Rosemary, the action taken, Rosemary Cashman, the action taken tonight, that we do want to get that process going right away for the peer review, because we will need some time. What I'd like to do is get that report well in advance, be able to look at it, share it with you. If there was ever a way to show the public before that meeting, so they don't have to pass it around and read it, or maybe Attorney Weicker, if you seem to represent a core of people there, maybe if we could get it to Attorney Weicker so he could review it prior to the meeting. I just want to avoid
I can facilitate that handoff.
Okay.
We can exchange business cards.
All right, and if it's available to us, that means it's available to anybody in the city, I think, right, Kim? So they can come down and read it. Any resident who wants to come down and read it, there's no restriction why they can't do that, right? Okay, so when we have it and we have access to it, any resident should be able to access it and at least read it. Whether or not they can make copies, I don't know, but you're welcome to go and read it if it's at the building department.
Just procedurally, in terms of going to the Historic Commission, does it make sense to reach out to Kim tomorrow morning just to discuss how to move forward? I just want to make sure that we're handling our side of the deal.
What I think what the board would like to do is make sure that that's already done prior to the next meeting, so you don't have to keep continuing it. The more, if we can have everything kind of blend into the next meeting, all reports ready, and ready to have a final hearing. I think this might be our third or fourth continuance. Okay, so the next hearing is February 22nd. And I think this will be the first item on the agenda, if that means anything to anybody, because I don't think we have any first continuance on the
Yes,
agenda.
it's continuance, Mr. Chairman, it'll be top of the agenda, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rick Tessier. I'm with the Lowell Sun. I'm just wondering if you could tell us what constitutes a peer-to-peer review, who the parties are, what they'd be examining, et cetera.
Can you ask that question again? I'm not sure exactly what you just asked us.
Well, the peer review, who are the peers? What are they looking at? What's the subject matter, the expected results or findings?
I think what we're going to be looking for is somebody who has an engineer in telecommunications who can give us some input on if there's any other more viable locations where the cell tower can go. My understanding is it can't be just more economically feasible for them. It doesn't matter how much it costs them. If there's other alternative that's viable, they have to pursue it. I think that somebody brought up some health issues. My understanding is that that's not something that the board can consider. It has to be something that's architecturally compatible with the area. There's a host of things. I think you're probably better off talking to the who's ever appointed as the peer reviewer, and they'll be able to answer those questions more directly. The reason we're getting somebody like that is because that's their expertise, not so much ours.
Yeah, and if I may add to it, Mr. Chairman, it's more or less an independent study paid for by the petitioner, not the city.
Yeah, that is at the cost of the petitioner. I can refer you to I can give you a copy of a case that lists all the criteria that may help you if you want, and I can do that out after the meeting, or you can come make a copy of it if you'd like.
And we would like to thank the neighborhood especially for coming out tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next hearing on the agenda is ZB 2009-00060, and I have to recuse myself from this, so I may be able to. And
Good evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next matter is ZB-2009-60, request for variant, Mr. Ronnie Fisher, Jr. The address is 1519-1527 Middlesex Street. Petition to reduce the number of required parking spaces for a martial arts school in accordance with Section 6.2 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Fisher, go ahead, sir.
Yes, good evening, Rodney Fisher, 32 Willard Street. I apologize also, before we start, is that I invited some of the members from the school and stuff, but because they would become short-handed staff because some of the instructors were sick today, but they do express their, their hopefulness and support that you guys would be in favor of approving this tonight. And what we did was, I had the opportunity to meet with the building commissioner and them after the last meeting that we had to rehash out the calculation based on what they felt would be would satisfy everybody in our request for the variance. And unfortunately, there was a letter that he was going to generate for us tonight, but because of the events that happened and stuff, that I'm hoping that what I provided with you would be sufficient enough to kind of a detailed breakdown as far as the registered students at the school, and then some pictures. I didn't want to inundate you with a flood of pictures of every week for 8 hours, 12 hours during the course of the day to show you. So I probably took the prime times that, that I'm there, that I see activity of vehicles in and out of there and stuff, and actually the square footage of the space that's actually really being utilized by the school. and actually the activity of the businesses that are there. You know, and for that, I feel that, you know, the calculation that was done with me and the engineer who worked on this project with us from the start, you know, did a recalculation and stuff based on the square footage under the supervision of the inspectional service department based on what we really utilize for parking there and stuff, and why we're requesting the parking space, because, and I think there was a commonality that was spoken today that I think that we would fall in line with that as far as, you know, us, the business that we have over there, you know. We just built that mall, so, and we have actually 3 units that have been empty for almost 2 years. And, you know, that's why, one of the reasons why we're seeking the relief and everything, to afford the opportunity to be able to continue on contributing to, you know, what that business has been doing over there in Lowell for many years, because the school's actually been over there since 1985.
Mr. Fisher, you indicated on record that you met with the commissioners. What was the outcome of that meeting?
Well, he gave us, we went through the code book and stuff, and then he gave us a calculation and a sheet that we redid the calculation on the parking, because there was some changes from the original drawing, where I think the calculation that they originally did was based on the occupancy in the martial arts school, which at one point we had a retail store, which was using 2,500 square feet of that building, which was no longer in there. As a matter of fact, during the development of the mall, the plaza that's there now, that retail place actually relocated to a smaller place, and we never filled that in. So then we did a calculation just based on the recreational, what they're actually using, and they only use the 2 training rooms, which were down on the first floor of the building. And the other units, as I broke down in the letter, they're utilized for other purposes. And I don't want to say argumentative basis, but just that, you know, when the kids are there in the school, they're only occupying one space at a time, and most of the time it's usually in the recreational room, and they're only there for 1-hour durations.
I have learned from the last meeting, I actually spoke to the owners of the martial arts school, I think.
Master Richard,
you're right. That the last time you were here, you represent to us that it was, over 500 students? What is the correct number of students?
Well, it's 173. Maybe that was my goal, you know, and I apologize for that, because I wasn't, you know, numbers and stuff, I really didn't have a concrete number of actually what it is until I actually discussed with it to him too.
So that was your estimate at the time, you're saying?
Yeah, it was just my estimate, and I apologize for you know, exactly. I mean, it would be nice to have that many there, you know, because I only know firsthand how many kids and people that school has touched in Lowell from the time they're in existence. So I'm just thinking, you know, I was just saying out loud as myself, personal.
And the total square feet for the building is about, 100,000?
No, 10,000.
10,000, okay,
yes.
sorry. And how much space do you utilize out of those 10,000 square feet?
They only use 4,500 during the course of the...
And have you have spoken to the commissioner on this?
Yes, I did, and he verified it also.
Okay. So he actually calculated the parking spaces required per those 4,500 square feet.
Yes,
used,
correct.
Which
correct.
is 22.5 parking space?
Yes, correct.
The unit is 8 units, right?
There's 8 units, and in the first 2 units, they're occupied by Minute Press, and they have one employee that works there, and he's the only one that has his vehicle actually that's there. And then the owner of the Minute Press, because this is a new ownership right now, so thank God that we got someone else, because when we first originally had a tenant in there, they actually, you know, were unable to stay there, so we got another tenant to fit in there, which is underneath the same company.
On the back here is also leased to Nail Salon. How many employees do they have?
They only have one. There's just one employee.
And the hair salon?
She has 2 employees, but there's only one person there that has a vehicle.
Okay.
And
How about the Asian market?
The Asian market,
down
one
the end?
employee, and she doesn't drive at all.
So who drive her then?
Her boyfriend drives her there, drops off, because I know him personally, because he has another business in Lowell.
And the last time the board asked you what you plans to have in those 3 vacant space that you indicated, what will go in there? What will be going in there, that space?
The last 3 spaces?
Yes, sir.
Well, right now, we have a potential tenant that, she's already willing to sign a 20-year lease with us and stuff, which would be perfect for that building, because them spaces been empty for almost 2 years since we built it. And she wants to open out a Thai restaurant, a takeout restaurant.
And I asked you last time, how many people?
Well,
we
I
talking about?
think she wants to be able to at least try to accommodate 10.
10 table?
Yes, 10 seats. 10 seats.
10 seat?
Yes, 10 seats.
So how many tables, sir?
Well, I believe that would be 6 tables, 6 to 8 tables.
All right, let me turn to my fellow board member, Mr. Bailey, sir. Any questions, sir?
So how many spaces at the end of the day are you asking for? I have numbers written down here of 64 and 62. So do you currently have 62 total spaces today?
Yeah, it's 62, and I don't know, the way the numbers got mixed up there and stuff is because we actually lost the space because we had to relocate the dumpster because of where it was originally placed. We have a concrete pad there.
Right.
Where an original plan, and because of the condo association expressed a concern about the odors or attracting rodents and stuff, which would never been a problem because we really don't have anybody in there who disposes of things that would attract them in there.
Yep. So tonight, we have from Sullivan Engineering a breakdown of total required spaces based on days of the week and times, and also the 62 that's in this report of total spaces, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with this? what I'm
Yes,
talking about?
I worked with him with that. Me and him both did that calculation.
Okay. So the total required section, is that just for the building that we're talking about where the training takes place?
Yes, correct, sir.
Okay. So any excess spaces would be consumed by the other businesses?
Correct, sir.
All right. And you don't foresee a problem with what's the real issue here as far as I know there was an issue about, say all the spaces are filled, where are people going to park?
right
I would
now-
assume they're going to go outside of Middlesex Street on any of those side streets, correct?
Right, correct.
Yep.
Well, based on what the issue was because of the original requirements they had on the original one, which I think there was a lot of variables that were, imposed on that, which restricted once we went to start leasing out the other units and stuff, we had to be very selective as far as what type of businesses we can allow in there and stuff. And I think part of because of not only so much of the economy, but also because of the fact I want to say through the whole process, it might have been a thing that really was kind of overlooked by everybody because we would have probably made the adjustment if we thought that was going to be a concern.
The new commercial strip, how long ago was that put in?
That was 2 years ago.
Yes.
I put it up 2 years ago.
Okay. And have you had a tenant there for 2 years?
Yes, I have, yes. Actually, just one tenant at Minute Press.
Okay.
And then just recently, the past year, we just got to the nail salon. Actually, she's been there a little bit longer.
How many employees does Minute Press have? Any idea?
Just one.
Just one, okay.
Yes.
So the real issue is the martial arts school. I would assume that's the only business that has a substantial amount of
Yes, a
people that could
substantial
potentially
amount,
be in there.
yes.
Yeah.
Or requirements imposed on them.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Knott, sir.
Through you, Mr. Vice Chairman, what's the actual number that you wish to reduce to?
At least 20 spaces, if possible. And the only thing that would do is that would free up, because I'm still being very selective of the type of business, because I'm actually the leasing agent for the owner too. And we're being actually selective about the business, but we don't want to tell anybody that they can't do business there, because we're suffering hardship from, having the empty spaces, in a lot. But, we're trying to be selective so that we can fall into line with what the requirement is for parking that we're allowed.
In regards to the potential new tenant, the Viet Thai restaurant, how many employees are they going to have?
Well, it's just her and her husband. It's just, no employees.
wait staff?
No, as a matter of fact, if I can share you a little history about it, she lives in Lowell, and she actually has a restaurant right now in New Hampshire, which she's going to relocate in Lowell because she resides in Lowell. So she wants to continue being part of Lowell and do her business in Lowell. So that's why she wants to do that. She wants it just for her and her husband to do that. So actually she's downsizing from a restaurant she has in Nashville, which is 120 seats, and she wants to downsize because her and her husband are getting a little bit older, and then she wants to leave it with her child that's growing up. So that's her motive and intention.
And you're telling us that the majority of business is takeout, seating capacity of no more than 10 or a dozen, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Belanger, sir.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chairman. I do have some concerns on this. I know the petitioner does face a hardship there, this location. And I've driven by there a few times. I haven't exactly monitored the parking. I do live nearby, by the way, and I haven't seen any situation where it's overflowed. But on the flip side, you do have 3 vacant units there in your strip mall. And we're here to help you with that. I mean, you pay taxes on it, and we're here to help you fill that void. But are you saying the whole restaurant's going to take up the 3 spaces, or is that one of the 3?
No, they only request in 1 unit.
1 unit, okay. Now, something doesn't really jive here. Now, you're saying, how many tables in this restaurant?
Well, their intention is they want to be able to qualify to be able to seat no more than 10. In other words, have 10 if that's possible, because we already, I mean, based on what I spoke with inspectional services, they said that if there was and they even had an architect who did the drawings for it, was involved in this conversation with them and stuff, said that, that's what she would be eligible for.
Okay, all right, well, we can put conditions on that to control that, because I thought, I spotted an inconsistency here. I thought you said 8 tables.
Well, 8
tables
people.
will translate into more than 10 seats. I'm in a similar business, so that's not right.
Right.
Okay, but I suppose we can put conditions on that to limit you. But how about the other 2 units? Anything transpiring there?
No, we had someone that was interested, but I think, and I was hesitant on committing to them because of, hoping that whatever the result of this is, which, and I really hate to put someone in that situation that wants to do business here in Lowell and stuff and tell them that we can't lease out space to them because, we're not allowed to, and people, I mean, I can't express to you the comments that we have about that building being there and stuff, even at the beginning, and I'm sure you guys are aware that we had some opposition at the beginning from the condo association, but now we even have the support of them and stuff as far as the building being there, because they even do business there too.
So, but on the flip side, if this were to get approved, those other 2 to 3 units, I mean, you're going to be kind of restricted there on the type of business due to this cut down if it were to be granted. So
well,
I'm sure you realize that.
Yes, we're aware of that.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some concerns. I don't know if we can bring back to the board the type of businesses that go in the future, because I am concerned. I mean, right now, he's borderline parking. I've seen it 3/4 full and less than that, but if you add 2 to 3 more units, we could be in line for a perfect storm over there.
I believe we could make conditions, since he come here and asking that we reduce in terms of the use of the parking for the martial art. And we can make conditions that whatever go in there have to come before the board for approval, because depend on the type of business you put in there. If you put another restaurants there, it's going to require more parking. It's going to be a problem. So therefore, from here on out, anything that coming into that strip mall has to come before the board.
Well, let me,
And
What
I
type of
wouldn't,
business?
and I wouldn't have any problem with that, because I think right now, and when we built when I built the building and stuff, one of the things that conditions we have anyways, I didn't receive a certificate of occupancy for the entire building. So each unit I lease it to in there, they have to go through, either visit the planning, the inspectional service anyways, in order to see if there's, their approval. Then this is why I'm here before you now. Is part of that reason, is for us to be able to get the certificate of occupancy for any type of business we put in there.
I also share Mr. Belancho's concern with regard to this number of table. I would make a conditions that if it be approved by, or with the wish of the board, that it be 5 table, not 6, not 8. 5 table with 4 seat, 4 chair per table, and that's certainly to start off with, because I too concerned with, just like what you said, Mr. Belancho.
all right, I'm interested in hearing the input from the other board members, Mr. Chairman.
Ms.
Trying to understand the actual number of spaces that you're requesting a variance for. Do you have an actual number? Are you referring to this table of 62 here? Because we go through a calculation based on the 2 buildings. I'm getting a number of 69 based on the working assumptions that you provided.
Well, I think the reduction, what it did was it brought down the requirement of for the martial arts school, 29 spaces. So in other words, the balance of the space would be available for the plaza itself as a whole. Because right now we have, on the old plan, there was required 50 spaces for the martial arts school. And I think based on the recalculation of the space that they actually utilize, it almost dropped it down. I wouldn't want to say half, to probably about total for 43 required for it.
Are there competitions here? Is it just training? What kind of?
No, it's just training, and a lot of the events they do, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with a lot of them, but they do a lot at the arena, and we also do at the UMass, the college. We rent out the auditorium there when we have large events. As a matter of fact, the school, they probably participate in pretty much every single event that Lowell has. And I'm not sure if you're aware that some of the members are, but so most of the events they have, or competitions they have, like we do one every single year, which draws in people from other martial arts schools in other states and stuff, and we usually do it at a different location. Right now, the programs and events they do are just pertaining to the students that are registered at the school when we have testing, and, for when they do the testing of their belts. And like this Saturday, we had a board breaking competition where, for the younger kids, they come and they break boards and stuff, and they'll bring the spectators, their parents, and some other family members. And only at that time is when there's usually maybe the parking lot gets to the point where it appears that it would be full, but it's only for an hour duration.
In the letter that you submitted, dated January 21st, from RF Construction and Maintenance, it refers to these 2 training rooms of 3,800 square feet also have a set of bleachers in each training room and chairs for spectators?
Yeah, where they come in, where they're able to sit down.
Right. Well, if we're trying to look at the actual use of this facility and looking at trying to scale back the parking, so I'm trying to reconcile that with the comments that you have. Do you know how much capacity you have for bleachers and chairs in addition to the students?
Well, they could probably, in each unit, in each room, they could probably, have, like, for the classes that come there. Usually the class, I think the maximum size class I probably saw was probably about 15 to 25 train at a time, and some of the parents come and sit down with them, but not all the time they do it. A lot of the parents, what they do is they drop off their kids and they let them do their class, but we just have them there for the availability if they needed to have a seat, a place to sit.
Roughly how much seating capacity is there?
It, on average, I probably would say each bleach is probably about 10 to 15. I'm just giving a rough estimate from trying to picture in my mind, probably 10 to 15 people. Because the way they set up and stuff is they'll sit up, you know, there's the 2 levels, a bottom level, one person sits, so for them to be comfortably, I would say 10 to 15.
Okay. All right, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bandy, sir?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, trying to figure this out, I think. You're actually you're looking for a variance of 30 spaces out there.
Yes, please.
You're saying you're 30 spaces short to make this work for you. I mean, 30 spaces is a lot of spaces. Again, with my colleagues, I'm trying to figure out how we got to this situation. And what happens if you start to use that other space over there? I mean, you're gonna start using half that building now. What happens if you use the whole building? That's 10,000 square feet.
Well,
You're gonna need that space back. That's what we're trying to figure out here. And you rented out how many spaces over at the new strip mall so far?
I would actually say 3 units, because one of the units is occupied by, 2 units is occupied by one of the tenants.
Okay.
And then we have the nail salon, hair salon, and Asian market. And to answer your question, they only have there right now the 2 training rooms downstairs that we actually really utilize. And the other units, as I laid out in there, the other units are occupied with either like they have one room where there's an individual training area, they have a changing room, a lounge, like a lounge area where they, you know, some of them just sit, you know, and use, and the restrooms and closets, storage closets in the other units and stuff. But I don't think they have any intention on opening up any other areas other than what they've been using, because those are the main areas that they do the training, and because they have bags that they have hanging from the ceiling, and it's only on their first level where they're able to do that.
That's why it's kind of like I know you're trying to rent them, and I want you to rent them. I think I need some type of matrix that's going to tell me that in unit, whatever, 7-9, you can only put retail. You can't have a restaurant. You can't have a sub shop. You can't have any seating. That's why. You're already way above what you need for seating. Now you're asking us to reduce it by 30 for one building. I mean, both buildings are on one lot, and I think probably that's where the problem came about, was when they started doing the calculations, they didn't figure that this building went with the same lot. That's my opinion. But, I mean, I want to help you, but 30 spaces is a lot of spaces for that, you know, the area you're trying to lease and use. I don't want to, I went by, it looked about 3/4 full when I went by at one time. It's tough, because especially with the winter time, and then if you have spillage out into the street, over to Dunkin' Donuts or wherever else, and then they start complaining that we gave you a 30 space variance, it's kind of hard. I think I would need like a type of matrix that says I can only put this in this unit, that's it. And it kind of handcuffs you, but it's what it is. Kind of difficult, 30 spaces. If we had another one of these coming right in front of us today and say, we're gonna build this, but we don't have enough parking, we need a relief of 30 spaces, we would say, probably absolutely not, That's a lot of spaces. But that's just my comments, my ideas. I leave it up to the rest of the board also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Right, is there anyone in the audience would like to speak in support of this petition? Anyone in the audience like to speak in support of this petition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone in the audience would like to speak in opposition of this petition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Before I turn to the board, I think it would be very helpful. I was hoping that the owners of the martial arts school will be here to speak, because in addressing some of the questions that Mr. Benvenu, or concern that Mr. Benvenu have with regard to future expansion of those 10,000 square feet building. I was there. I know that certain area was not used and certain area was used for certain things. And also I was there and I learned from him that 80% of the students drop off, and young children and whatnot. And I also learned the misinformation that you provide us from the last meeting, that was not 500 or so students, but instead was 100 and something students. So it's a vast difference. There's misinformation that you provide us from the last meeting. I was hoping that the owner will be here to address some of those questions and concern that we raised tonight, especially was raised by Mr. Kavanaugh with regard to the number of spaces and sitting and whatnot, who's sitting there, and how the schedule of the class is like, so that we have a better idea as to how many exactly of those 10,000 square feet being used. And you said, I look at your number is reasonable because I was there looking at it, but the other concern is that future expansion and maximize the 10,000 square feet being used in that Mr. Benvenu raised, will be very, very helpful to hear, for the board to hear all those, the answer to those questions. In the future, what's going to be in those 2 other vacant spaces that you have? You propose that, or you have someone interested, potential client or a tenant for the Thai spaces, and the other 2 we don't know yet. So all those unanswered questions, it need to be answered for some reason. And so I don't know what the board like to do right now.
Well, I think, and he did express his deep apologies that they was unable, because he even wanted to bring some of the students and the parents that were here, but because they had, some of the instructors were sick and stuff, and they already had a pre-scheduled, classes and stuff, and so he ended up, as far as being the master instructor there, he had to be there just to make sure the classes, the students that attended were there and stuff, and they felt confident enough that, me being here and stuff, and hopefully appealing to you gentlemen tonight and stuff, that you would be in favor of allowing them the variance and stuff, because of, I've been a part of them for years and stuff, and as a matter of fact, I even done a lot of the work in the martial arts school, and I know what their intention is. So even the owner felt comfortable enough to have me, be here and represent them tonight and stuff. Yes, I was, that was my expression of the actual count. I wasn't really aware of it, truthfully, at that time. I just see, people, and I just was, hoping, expecting that, because I know they have 2 schools, one here in Mass and the other one in New Hampshire, and I just know that when I go to events with them at other places and stuff, that we have a large amount, so I just think of larger numbers. That's just me, but the actual number I confirmed with him.
What's the wish of the board, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, I am in favor of this with some pretty stern conditions, and I'd like to throw them by the board before I do so, for their comments or additions or whatnot. Now, the strip mall has 3 vacant units, correct?
Yes.
Well, I want to see all 3 of those units come back to this board for approval, if this were to get approved.
Well,
okay?
one of them, that's why I'm here with you right now, so
Well,
I
yes,
would
okay,
say
there's
the
a
2.
restaurant, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, we can put a condition at the restaurant limited to 10 seats, I believe is your request?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and the other 2 units will have to come back to this board for approval. Okay, because you
No, I
what's
understand
going
that,
on.
yes.
Seriously, you could be handcuffing yourself on one end, but I think you realize that, Mr. Fisher, you know what I'm saying? We want to work with you, but we don't want cars ending up on the street down there. It's just too busy a street, okay? Now, regarding snow removal, Mr. Bienvenu made a good point regarding snow removal. So I like all excess snow that reduces the number of parking spaces be removed from the property. Thirdly, property address 1519 Middlesex Street, which is the martial arts studio. No storage rooms will be converted unless approved by this board. Now, currently, it's 10,000 square foot building, correct?
Yes.
You're only utilizing 4,500 square feet.
Correct.
Between locker rooms, storage, and whatnot. I don't want to see that storage room be converted to a dance studio or whatever may relate to your business without this board's approval.
Right.
That naturally is going to result in more cars. So, as it stands, I could see it clear to approve this with these following conditions. I'd like the other input from my board members, please. Thank you.
Mr. Nod, sir.
The other consideration here, and I think Mr. Bienvenu and Mr. Kavanaugh were on the mark, but one of the things that's interesting here, that the numbers were off, and you were humble enough to concede that you made a mistake, but there's a point here that, according to the document in front of me, there are 173 registered students. He's been there approximately 2 years, correct? How long has the martial arts studio been at that location?
That martial arts school's been there since 1985.
85, okay. Would you say the numbers have gone up or down?
Well, it varies, and right now, because of the economy and stuff, as a matter of fact, they've even lost some students and stuff because of the, they're unable to afford it and stuff, and, which is sad because they try to accommodate everybody there. I know that firsthand.
That's my point. So the economy turns and the amount of students expand, and it gets to the number that you theoretically threw out of 500. Now we have more traffic. And, I guess I'll take a look at and listen to, again, all the additional comments and what their position is. But both Mr. Bienvenu and Mr. Kavanaugh kind of have swayed me in a slightly different direction. Although again, the balance that this board struggles with is trying to help businesses, trying to help developers like yourself, and then also addressing the conceivable and possible public safety issues for a flow of traffic in and out of an area like that. You're right, it's economic difficulty right now, and we're down to 173 students.
Well, I think that was their max because their numbers, believe me, has been lower. That's what their registered students are this year, and that's what they have registered, but not all the time.
I appreciate that, but let's be candid. Anybody that's in business is in business for one reason,
right? To
do more business.
Right.
So at some point, they're going to try to be creative, and as the economy turns. I just want to make sure that the conditions that are placed are going to allow for those considerations, possible expansion and growth of the martial arts studio as the economy turns. I'll leave it up to the rest of the board. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir.
A couple of things. I have to agree with my board members on the other end of the table here. I kind of look at this as a large parking area. I mean, when I drove through there a couple of times, there's nothing that tells me what's parking for the martial arts and what's parking for the strip mall, first of all. So to the variance that you're asking about, I'm a little confused myself also, exactly what you're asking for, because I see nothing in the plans that tells me, I think you mentioned you're looking for 30 spots now for the martial arts. So that would leave 32, and then I look at 8 units, and that leaves like 4 per unit. I haven't heard like a definitive plan of what you're trying to do. The second thing is, when I look at the planning board, what they came in, when they did the review of this, and I know they take a different scope than we do, but they did the actual site plan review for that whole construction there, am I correct?
Yes, and we went under the direction.
So one of the things they have in here is, when they looked at your application, it does not make clear how many parking spaces are needed or how much relief is needed. And I think we've all been asking that question. Second, they also said when they did a site visit there, that the parking lot observed was near capacity without even the occupancy of the strip mall. So I think for me, Mr. Vice Chair, I think I need to see more of a definitive plan of what we're talking about. I think we're kind of belaboring the point here now, and I think some of the members here really are kind of confused what you're trying to do, what type of relief you're trying to to get, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure how many spaces you were supposed to have originally for the martial arts. And as Mr. Bienvenu mentioned, it's one parking area. And I know that's the way it got designed, but I think this board, at least me personally, I need to really understand what are we looking at and what do you really need seeking relief on? And I think we've kind of talked about this between two meetings now, to be quite honest with you.
Yes, and I think we have, and I think, I see, and I'll just tell you from the beginning, I went under the direction and the advisement from not only the planning board, the conservationists, and the inspectional service, and what I'm brought before you is what was recommendation was to them, the best case scenario that we could approach this was that because of the school is absorbing, according to the code, that they're absorbing the majority of the parking space. So by their suggestion of the commissioner and the conservationist and the planning department, that if we request parking relief off of that number there, that would allow us to be able to accommodate and be able to have the opportunity to lease out the rest of the space.
So what's the plan if you get 30 spots for the martial arts? What are you going to do if you have over 30 spots consumed? What are you going to do with those cars?
Well, we're not going to abuse it. I mean, you know.
No, where are those cars going to go?
What, the 30 spaces that?
Yeah, if the 30 spaces are consumed, where's the 31st space going to be consumed?
The 31st space?
Well, you have 30 spots, correct?
Correct.
So what's going to happen when that lot for the martial arts is filled?
When it's full? Well, as I even mentioned on here, there hasn't really been a time where they took every single parking space in the parking lot, even the 50 spaces that they had, other than most of the events that they have.
I mean, it's open parking there, am I correct?
Yes, correct.
So to ask for 30 for one building, how is that going to be regulated? That's where I'm a little bit confused what we're looking at here.
Well, that's something I can't even really be truthfully answer with you, because I think if that question was posed to anybody, I don't think they could answer that.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, that's where I personally am a little bit confused over what we're trying to get at here. And I know you had the meeting with Mr. Camacho. Right. But we didn't receive anything in writing about what happened with that. You know what I mean? I know you were going to have the meeting with Mr. Camacho after our last meeting, correct?
Yes.
And you're saying you did sit down with him, correct?
Yes, I did.
Yep, okay.
And then that's how I got the engineer involved in it.
Right. But you didn't receive anything from that meeting, correct?
From him?
Yep.
Well, I was expecting it, but because of the turning events that
I appreciate
transpired.
that. Yep.
I share my fellow board member concern, Mr. Fisher's. I'm also concerned with the misinformation from the last time. I would prefer to get all documentations coming, the review, the comment by the commissioner, the comment by the DPD. Also, I like the owner to be here to address some of the issues that some of my fellow board members raised with regard to future expansions and so on and so forth, because the presentation that you provide is sometimes it's not complete. It's not complete. It's a guess, so to speak, with all due respect. I'd rather have the owner being here so that we get the exact word from him so that it give us a better understanding and enable us to make a better decisions. So I would, it's up to you, but I would, if you want us to vote tonight, this petition is trouble.
Well, and the thing is that I think that...
I prefer that you gather those documentation and have whoever's, the owners being here to answer some of the questions and have the documentation, the comment from the commissioner and or the DPD before us tonight. Otherwise, if you put it to vote tonight, this petition is trouble.
Well, I think...
I cannot say that.
Yeah.
I don't want to say any more of that. It's up to you whether or not you would
Well, I just like to make one more comment on behalf of that, because I was expecting that the bill from the last meeting that I had, as a matter of fact, there was just last week that I had a conversation with the building commissioner and stuff, and I have to share this with you because, and I think anybody that comes before this board actually, and I think you would know that too, is because I think from the onset of us building this plaza over here, we went under the direction, because most of the stuff that anybody that does any building in Lowell does is what they do is we seek the instruction in order to be in compliance through each department that's available to us. And I did that when I went to the building commissioner, and even I presented to him exactly what you have in front of you, and I worded it and wrote it exactly the way they requested us to write it and stuff.
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Fisher, would you like us to vote on this tonight, or would you like to continue on this?
Well, I'm hoping that, I like to have it finished tonight because I know the understand the frustration of the owner and them and stuff, and we just want to have the ability to.
Mr. Vice Chair, may I have a word, please? Mr. Fisher, now, when I spoke, I had some proposed conditions, but I have in my notes here that variance is for 20 spaces. Now, as the conversation went to my right, now it's 30, so I'm equally as confused as my fellow board members, and I think what the Vice Chairman is trying to get across is that you risk this board to vote very hastily tonight if you were to go forward. It's your decision.
Yeah.
But we're all very confused. I myself now, too.
Well, I said 20 spaces. I don't know where the 30 spaces came up from because
That's what I heard, 30 here and 30 over there, so here we go again, basically, so.
No, I didn't say 30. I didn't bring up that number.
Okay, all right, well,
I'd like to help Mr. Fisher's. What would you like to do? What would you like us to do? You like us to vote it tonight, or you like to continue it?
Mr. Chairman, one suggestion, if
Yes,
I
sir.
may.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Benview's suggestion, because we're looking at a variance here and there is some question about the number of spaces, his suggestion, I think, is a good one, which is to look at the entire site for the uses that you have and build a table that says, based on the square footage, what is the required parking for each of in the two buildings, what's the required parking based on the uses that are currently in there. That would give us a full picture of what's happening here in the calculations, and then we can start to account for the requested variance, which is a reduction based on considerations of perhaps a reduction in the actual space that's being used. But the numbers, when we look at them from different perspectives, don't seem to be consistent. So this, I think, would be to your benefit and to your client's benefit to provide that information so that we can see the entire plan. We want to see you be successful there, but we need to have the right information in front of us so we don't create a more complicated situation from parking and safety and other considerations.
Yeah,
so that's a suggestion that I would put forward if you've gone this far. I think the consideration that as different businesses are come into play here, we would want to look at that because we've had other situations in the city that are very cramped parking-wise, and taking this complete view would be helpful for us to look at this so that we satisfy your clients that are there, that they have the spaces that they need, and that there's the safety is considered as well.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying.
Kavanaugh.
And my question is too, and I like to ask you because I think the money we spent, this is with the engineer, Jack Sullivan, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with him, and also where we worked with the planning department and stuff. They're the ones that gave us adopted this calculation. We didn't. I didn't adopt this, and I think it was based on this that they said that when we built that building, when we were ready to lease it out and stuff, this is how they based, who we could actually let in there and stuff. And I think that was the guideline they was following. That's why every time when I got a potential tenant to go to lease that unit, I would present it before them to the inspectional service, and then they said, well, that type of business there, you would have to see if they fell in that calculation, which unfortunately, because of whatever the mix-up was of how this martial arts school ended up with 50 spaces and how they ended up calculating. But that was adopted not through us, it was through the resources that we used in the city.
And just to be clear, depending on the use of the different locations, there are different requirements in the code. So it may be to your advantage, depending on the type of business that's there, to provide a more specific calculation based on the business versus just an aggregate perspective that it's retail use versus recreational. that's my request.
Yeah, Mr. Kavanaugh, I feel that's a very logical formula there compared to what we're going at guest games now and whatnot, so I'm in agreement with Mr. Kavanaugh.
Mr. Fisher,
Yeah.
what would you like us to do?
Well, I guess, you know, just to take part of your suggestion and stuff and see if I can have the owner, you know, appear here and stuff. You know,
Provide those logical calculation that Mr. Kavanaugh suggested before, by the next meeting.
for him to give you the calculations of what the parking they need for the school?
You to do that and provide to this board.
Yeah, well, he gave me his accurate count, which I agreed to you that I was in error as far as the exact number and stuff, but he gave me that. But I mean, I will let him know that, you know, you requested him to appear.
So are you requesting continue on these matters?
Yeah, as soon as possible, please.
February 22nd.
There's not one sooner?
It's the next meeting.
We have no agenda for the February, in early February, so.
We want to give you enough time to get all those information to us, though, so that you won't come incomplete. You will come back with complete information so we can vote on it, because this has been continued. This is the second time already, so the 22nd of February will be the continuing on these matters. All right. A motion on this.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue till February the 22nd, 2010.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I think, just so the petitioner is clear.
Right.
What we're suggesting is not only for the continuance, but that you go back to inspectional services.
Right.
Sit down with them, give them your best estimate as to potential clients, the clients you're dealing with, and come back to us with something more specific, as Mr. Kavanaugh has suggested, just so you understand.
Yes.
We don't expect you to calculate and pull these numbers out of the air, because it's not going to do us any service at all. What we're looking for is some input between the potential tenants, the tenants you have, and inspectional services to come up with more specific numbers.
Right.
Well, actually, we did have that, but, you know, so actually what it is we were actually really paying for an event that took place, which really, us as a petitioner really have nothing to do with, because he was going to present that to us and stuff, so, you know, and...
We're just trying to help you right now based on, unfortunately, what we think is the lack of accurate information to make a decision tonight.
Also, in addition to that, could you also invite the owner, Master Richard, to be here also, if you have any questions for him, so that he can answer, so we can hear from him in person, right? That said, do I hear second on the motions?
Seconded.
Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Continue to February 22nd.
Continue.
Continue.
Continue to February 22nd.
Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. The matter continue to February 22nd.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Hello again, folks. Just one question. Again, Rick Tessier, Lowell's son. Mr. Fisher is asking for a continuance on a variance to decrease the number of parking spaces currently allotted to him?
That's for the martial arts studio, yes.
Okay. Overall for the building, then yes as well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the next petition is the item of new business. It's ZB 2009-61. This is a petition for a variance. The applicant is Highland Place Condo Association. The address is 62 Highland Street. This property is located in a traditional multifamily zone. The petitioner would like to maintain the existing 5-unit building with decreased lot area per dwelling unit and without the required parking as a result of proposed lot line relocation pursuant to section 4.5, which is a non-conforming uses and structures, and 6.11 relating to off-street parking of the zoning ordinance. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Excuse me. My name is Kurt Olson, and I am the attorney for the trustees of Highland Place Condominium Trust, who are both behind me in support. As you said, essentially what the trustees of the Highland Place Condominium Trust would like to do is pretty much maintain the status quo, other than the alteration of a lot line and the continuation of a non-conforming use which was previously approved by this board. Essentially, as you may know, 62 Highland Street had a fire in the roof, top floor, back on February 5th of 2009. After that fire, the condo association tried to figure out exactly what they were going to do, because obviously now, well, actually there were two options to them originally available. Either to rebuild and to maintain the condominium association as it was, or to break up the condo association and have 214 Thorndike, which is the other building right next door to 62 Highland, excuse me, remain as part of a condo association, and then sell 62 Highland. The unit owners of 62 Highland, and actually all of the owners, determined that it would be in all of their best interest to sell. So we went through the whole process of essentially getting in touch with the insurance company for the condo association. The unit owners of 62 Highland were all paid off their insurance amounts, and then it was determined, okay, next step is we need to sell the building at 62 Highland. The way the deed is currently written as part of the condo docs and the condo association is that most of the land that is associated with this condo association belongs to 62 Highland. And the owners of 214 Thorndike, the remaining unit owners of the condo association, would like to have that land go with 214 Thorndike rather than 62 Highland. What they have proposed to the buyers of 62 Highland is that they would essentially change the lot line with this board's permission and have that land associated with 214 Thorndike, and then grant an easement back of 3 spaces that currently are associated with 62 Highland, along with the rest of the parking. So the idea is, as I said at the beginning, Mr. Chairman, is to maintain the current configuration. There would be no change, but change the lot line so that the parking spaces now would be associated with 214 Thorndike rather than 62 Highland. The result of this would be that there would still be 7 spaces associated with the building at 62 Highland. There would still be 8 associated with the building at 214 Thorndike, but the ownership would change. So that's essentially what we're looking for. One other point I'd like to make is that currently the condo docs, and I believe this was an approval formerly by this board back, I'm assuming when the condo association was formed back in the 80s, 1980s, the condo docs essentially said that 1 bedroom owner is entitled to 1 assigned parking space as available. 2 bedroom owner is entitled to 2 assigned parking spaces as available. So I believe one of the reasons that the board at that time decided to approve the non-conforming use was because they understood that some of these dwelling units in both 62 Highland and 214 Thorndike only have 1 bedroom. So there's no need for them to have 2 parking spaces according to the condo docs. I hope that clarifies some of what your questions might be. I know that it seems confusing. I think it's simpler than it looks.
Yeah. No. Kim, was there anything on this? Did you have any input from anybody, the building commissioner, or anybody who took a look at this, and the zoning officer, or anybody? Okay. Do you remember any? Was it Kathy Murphy? Have you had discussion?
Yes, I did have discussions with Kathy Murphy, and I think the consensus was, to tell you the truth, at Inspectional Services, well, they really didn't know what it was, why we were doing this, I guess. And that's everybody's confusion, including, to a certain extent, I have to admit, mine.
And mine.
Because we're not really looking to change anything other than the ownership. In terms of what parking spaces are associated with what. And as I said, it's essentially, I guess, what I would view as a grandfathered use, a grandfathered non-conforming use, because even though the way the parking lot is currently set up, In fact, to be perfectly frank with you, our engineer, when he drew the plans, said, I don't think you have enough space here, but from a practical standpoint, when you drive in and out of this parking space, there's plenty of space to move, back up, back and fill, and drive out. So it's not like it would be it would not have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood. And there would really be no issue in terms of.
No, I definitely understand that, because you're not changing anything that's not there. I guess
Correct.
I'm having a hard time figuring out how we can assist you. If you're talking about changing a lot line, then obviously you're talking about changing ownership rights.
Correct.
Changing deeds and so forth.
Right, yep.
Doesn't that have to be done before you come before this board? Or wouldn't it make more, I know it doesn't, maybe not have to.
Right,
But
yeah.
doesn't it make more sense? Because I'm not sure exactly what you're asking us to do.
Well, here's the problem, and I guess the reason why we came to you first is because the sale hasn't gone through. And the sale of 62 Highland is actually contingent upon your saying yay or yes to this, right?
But to what?
To the change of the lot line. And to the configuration of the parking, saying, okay, it's no longer, those parking spaces are no longer associated with 62 Highland, they're now associated with 214 Thorndike. And then the potential buyers of 62 Highland would say, okay, we understand what we're getting. And then they would say, okay, now we can close on this property. Essentially what I'm saying, I guess, is that the sale is contingent on what, you say, whether this is okay, in terms of, continuing the grandfathering, essentially.
What happens if the board doesn't approve it? Like what?
Right. That's the hardship, essentially, Mr. Chairman, is that if the board doesn't approve it, then we'd probably have to find another buyer. And I guess that the way the trustees look at it is that and they've always been assured by the building inspector and various others that, the city of Lowell would like to see this property rebuilt. 62 Highland.
Yeah, no, I agree. I went by, it's definitely.
Yeah.
I just, if somebody else might understand, but I'm having a hard time following exactly what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
What you're requesting us. Do we have the authority to move a lot line? No.
Right.
Okay. So we don't have the authority to say you should or shouldn't remove a lot line. That's an ownership interest, and
right.
It's done completely outside this board.
Right.
Are you saying if you move the lot line, then that affects the parking, and that's why you're before us?
It doesn't. What I guess the one piece that you could approve, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you could approve the continuation of the grandfathering. Because, again, according to my engineer surveyor, he says that, it was originally approved when it was a non-conforming use. In other words, the spaces, there really isn't enough space in terms of your requirements. But because they had approved it at that point, approved the non-conforming use based, I think, on the condo docs, the fact that the condo docs actually say that all you need is one parking space if you want to have a one-bedroom unit and two parking spaces if you have a two-bedroom unit, then, if it was approved then I guess what I'm looking for is the continuation of that approval, saying, we have no objection to your continuing that non-conforming use.
But do you need our approval if it's grandfathered in?
Again, my conversations with Kathy Murphy and the people at the, I think it was the zoning appeals office, they suggested that this is how I should proceed. So that's why I'm here.
All right, and maybe you are rightfully before us. I'm just having a hard time. Anybody have any input or questions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. How many units are we talking in these?
If I may, one of the
sure,
trustees would like to speak.
Maybe, my name's Tom Ryan, 214 Thorndike Street. I think the issue is, why we're here is, there's 200, when you divide that land up, that land that we're trying to sell falls 200 feet short of the required saleable lot, like 6,000 square feet or something. It falls like short, so I think that's why we're here, because we need a change.
For an undersized lot?
Yes, I think that's one of the reasons why we're here, as far as I understood, about 200 feet short. So that would change. Again, I could be wrong.
Chairman, it appears they want to continue a non-conforming use. Is that how I translate this?
That's my understanding. I wasn't aware of the fact that we were looking at a lot that would be non-conforming by 200 feet.
Well, it says that, I don't know.
All right, let's see, Bill, do you have any? just try to, maybe we can shed some light on this between us all, amongst us all.
Okay.
Go ahead. We're counting on you, Bill.
Yeah. So I don't know what does grandfathering have to do with us?
But I don't think it does.
If I look at the parking regulations, they don't meet the parking regulations, first of all. Because when you talk about a bedroom unit, you're citing what, 1 space and 2 spaces based on bedroom. Well, that has nothing, correct me if I'm wrong, that has nothing to do with our regulations for parking. If you have 5 units, you need 10 parking spots.
Right, okay. And so I guess when I use the term grandfathered, my understanding is that when this condo association was formed, this board or its predecessor said, yes, you may have that non-conforming use, fewer parking spaces that are required by the regs. So that's really what I guess I'm looking for in terms of.
The way I see the handout and the drawings that you gave us, I only see 4 parking spots that you currently have, I guess, in that driveway to the left of number 62, and then you show in the back the easement for 3.
Correct.
Which gives you 7, doesn't give you 10.
Right.
And that's why I'm kind of in agreement with the chairman. I'm listening to everything you're saying, but if I look at everything on face value, you're not meeting even our current requirements for parking. So is that why you're here, looking for a variance? You'll have to answer that, because I'm just trying to follow the way you're laying this out. And
right, yep, I understand.
When I took a ride over to the facility, I looked at 62, and then I actually drove around the block and came back up Thorndike and pulled in the parking lot and back, and took a look, and I could see that's a 5-unit, right? Because I believe there were 5 of the city dispensers there. I know is anybody living in there right now?
62 Highland, no, it's unoccupied.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of their problem. You probably saw the tarps on the roof.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the petition is for 62 Highland Ave. The petition that I can see has nothing to do with Thorndike, yet you're referencing Thorndike back and forth.
Right.
Even on the plans here. So are we entertaining 2 pieces of property, Mr. Chairman, or 1?
The application states 1. I think that's, I think you have a very confusing parcel here, and I think that's, that's just what it is. And I don't think that we can act on this under the current application. Maybe as a suggestion, we can listen to see what everybody else has to say, but if we could go back to the zoning officer, maybe somebody in DPD who might be able to tell you exactly what you need to accomplish, because I think the city does want to see something happen with that parcel. We could put it on for a continuance for the next meeting, which I think is February 22nd, and that should give you enough time to try to, either, you might have to file a new application if you're referencing a property that wasn't listed in the original application, so notice goes out. I mean, that you may have already met those requirements, but just to be safe, I'd check that. And, come back with some sort of narrative so, we all understand exactly what it is you're asking us to do. I think I have an idea of what the problem you have with the parcel. It's very confusing. It's complex because of what's going on. I think I understand what you're trying to do. I'm just not sure that this board has the authority, it's within the scope of our authority, to make those decisions. So I'd rather give you an opportunity to talk to somebody, give us more information, and tell us how we can help straighten out this parcel for you.
Okay.
And, before we do that, I'll see if anybody here is in favor or opposed to it, so we can get that on the record. But does anybody else have any input?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah,
Jack?
I agree. Correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor.
Absolutely.
The 62 Highland Street, prior to the fire, was granted a variance for the parking requirements. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that the condo association, which would be 62 Highland and 214 Thorndike, had applied for and received a variance on the parking regs.
Prior to the fire, correct?
Way back when the condo association was formed, 85, I think it was.
Right, and it was granted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the fire happens.
Right.
Now there's going to be a transfer of ownership, and there's also a problem with the size of the lot, is that correct?
Correct.
So actually, we're looking at two distinct issues here then. Is that correct?
If the grandfathering is an issue that the board would deal with, then that's
See, I'm not sure that
Right,
the
okay.
grandfathering or that term you're using is
Okay.
applicable for
Okay.
us. But
Continuation of the original approval of a non-conforming use? Would that be the first issue? And then the size of the lot, if we're trying to sell 62 Highland?
Okay,
Right.
so I think I'm clear on being unclear, but the way I read this, there are actually two issues here. One is the parking, and the other is the actual lot size itself. Is that correct?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Right. Guys, anybody?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think you're correct. I think it's gonna go to the DPD and to the planning board, because he's looking to subdivide or re-subdivide lots. So, I think that falls under the planning board, even if they
Okay.
would take no action or to tell you how to do it. And then you're gonna release parking spots from 214 Thorndike Street to 62, so you don't make the parking requirements nor the land size. So I think you're correct, Mr. Chairman, he has to go back to, would go over to DPD to try to get some guidance. And I kind of understand what you're trying to do. It's kind of already operating over there, but they just want to move a line.
Right, and if they can give you more, if you go to DPD, their job is more planning, and they can work out this is not a big deal for them to look at and figure it out. For us, we just don't, you could say move a lot line, we could say sure, but I don't know what, you have to record a decision. I don't know what our decision's gonna say.
Okay.
So if you go to them, they may be able to help you, and they may very well do what they need to do there, and then you come back here for a parking variance, and that's something we could entertain.
Okay.
Once that's clarified. I think that he would need to do that at some point, Rick, right?
Yes, a parking variance, and I believe a lot size. It's kind of vague here. Mr.
Right, so
Chairman.
we will see you again.
think they might
If you're not done whatever you have to do before the 22nd, you can send in a fax to Kim requesting a continuance where you don't have to come back here to do that, and, you wouldn't have to appear that night.
Okay.
So you don't have to bring anybody here, but is anybody here wish to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Any in opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? So, sir, there's nobody really here either way, so it doesn't seem to be a project that there's really any opposition for, so if you just work it out, we'll try to work it out with the planning department and maybe the planning board, and then come back here for whatever relief you may be looking for. It'll simplify it for everybody.
Okay.
And it'll make the record clear when we record decisions.
Do you have any suggestions for who I might speak to there, or just call the planning board, planning department?
Very helpful department. I think if
Are
you
they?
just call down there and you explain that you went to this meeting, and I think if you went through Kathy Murphy, and maybe she could refer him to somebody down there. Kim, do you think?
And-
Aaron Clausen?
Oh, I spoke to Aaron. He's the one that basically told me this is how to set it up. So,
Well, then maybe he's right, and if he could just send us a memo explaining
Okay.
What's going on, because the only memo we do have from the planning department basically says that it's difficult to decipher exactly what you're looking for.
Right.
So, and that may have been written previous to you speaking to Aaron, so, we'll, if we vote to continue it, we'll see you back here on that date, and if you can't make it that date, if you're not done, you can send a fax into the board in advance and requesting a continuance. So, I need a motion.
Make a motion to continue to February the 22nd.
Seconded.
Kim, roll call.
Continue to February 22nd.
Continue.
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 Continue to February 22nd. And Kim, is that 3 continuances now till February 22nd?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
The previous petition got.
All right, we'll see you then, sir. Good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, our final petition, I apologize, folks, I probably should have taken you right in advance. This has probably been pretty quick, but it's ZB 2008-54, request for extension of previously granted relief on January 12th, 2009. The applicant is Applicants Harry and Erin McDonald, 106 Acton Street, Lot A. This was previously granted to subdivide a lot and construct a single-family home with insufficient lot frontage and insufficient lot area per dwelling unit according to Article 5, Section 5.1 of the zone ordinance. Do you want to bring us up to speed?
It was
You have to
held up.
state your name for the record, even though I
Oh,
stated.
sorry, Erin McDonald and Harry McDonald.
Harry McDonald.
Okay.
It's in the family. We live at 106 Acton Street currently, and it was held up with the lawyers because there's 14 children in the family. So to do the sale and everything,
So it was in an estate?
it was in an estate, and it just passed. We finally closed on November. So
Okay.
we haven't had a chance to do anything.
There's something about why is the petition, the name on the petition is different than yours? Is that?
Carol Foley, she's the executor of the estate.
Okay, so,
And they said that we had to come before this because it was family, because we purchased it from,
okay, so you purchased it from family.
yeah, so,
So we approved it about a year ago.
correct. And we were here.
And you're here because it's the 1-year deadline.
Exactly.
And what status are you in now?
Well, we're ready to go forward. We just need an extension because we haven't been able to do anything. And
Okay.
The variance was expiring.
So, you have plans to start?
We have plans.
Okay.
We have a plan.
And it's something you're still following through with?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So what do you, like a 6-month extension?
If we could get a year, just, 6 months would be breaking ground and going forward with that.
Okay.
A year would
So you
be-
plan on breaking ground in the spring?
Yes,
Okay. And it's the same plans?
it's exact same.
Nothing's
Everything's-
changed?
Nothing's changed, just the timing, and it was held up, and
Okay. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this request, in favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition of this request to extend in opposition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll open up to the board for consideration. Any comments? Bill?
Support the extension.
Vezza?
I would support this.
Corey?
I'm in agreement with my colleagues, Mr. Chairman.
Kevin? And Rick? Okay, need a motion?
Make a motion to approve to grant the extension for 1 year.
Seconded.
Roll call, Kim, please.
Allow extension.
Approve extension for 1 year.
Approve the extension.
Approve the extension for a period of 1 year.
Approve extension for a period of 1 year.
Okay, folks, you've been approved
so
for 1 year. Sorry to have you hanging around the whole night.
that's okay. Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Appears to be worth it. All right.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, is there any other business?
No, there's nothing else on the agenda, Mr. Chairman. With that being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.